Welcome back, everyone, to LaSpace Academy Level 1 Session 7. We're really excited to bring you tonight's guest speaker. Before we do, I'd love to bring Sherry up. Sherry, welcome back. How are you doing today?
Where was I at?
Welcome
Seems
back
like we've been all over the planet.
into our virtual world.
I tell you, I've just been all over the map today, but mostly just in my office all over the map. Dan and I have been doing magic. We've started getting internship applications or picks out, and I talked to 4 lucky people today, actually, that got Lockheed Martin internship offers. And so we've still got a bunch more to go in terms of the Goddard, Kinetics, Southwest Research Institute, and ASU. So we hope to make a bunch of people happy. And so you might be getting a call from me or a special email. So be on the hunt for those kinds of things in your inboxes. We should have a lot of those. I think by the end of next week, we should have most of those offers on their way and people being informed. So I know that you're going to be on spring break, most of you, the next 2 weeks. So tonight's off session is going to be the last until, what's our next date, Dan?
March 21st.
March 21st will be our next.
March 21st we resume, yes.
Okay. So are you sure? That seems 3 weeks.
It does seem like 3 weeks, but it's not. The 7th, the 14th, and then.
All right. I guess this is the end of February already. I think we've lost lock, Dan, which isn't unusual. We run pretty crazy schedules here all the time. Anyway, we have a very special guest tonight that we had present for us as one of the speakers in the last LaSpace Academy, and he resonated so well with so many of the LaSpacers that we decided to bring him on as an official STEM professional now. So anyway, we're gonna be doing that. Is there any more housekeeping we need before we actually launch into our special presentation?
I always have announcements. So first of all, we have been meeting with project managers. We started those yesterday and continued today. I believe we met with approximately 80 out of 100 of you. So if you did not have a chance to hop on one of those, I know several of you emailed me. We've created an actual special Trello board specifically for project managers. So far, anybody that attended the sessions has been invited to join that, but I'm going through the list, and if you weren't able to attend, we'll still include you in that. So you can build up a network of project managers and help support each other as well. We might do a makeup session, another session maybe next week. Sherry and I can look at our calendar, see what we can figure out for y'all. But aside from that, I mean, it's been great touching base with the project managers. So those of you that are not project or deputy managers on the team, we want to funnel more information from us to you through the project managers, and they're all in for you. So understand, we did not meet with a single project manager that said, oh, my group is horrible, or oh, I don't want to do this, or this is horrible, this is a bad experience. They're all said, we want to make sure we're doing everything we can for our teammates and for our team and to support them. So understand that they're putting in extra time and effort just for you guys. So that was really great to hear.
Well, and we're super encouraged. This has been so active an academy in terms of all of you asking questions and just being very participatory, which we're excited about. And again, we bring these kinds of things up to NASA all the time in terms of saying, you know, we hope that the kinds of opportunity we're giving you, we basically threw the kitchen sink at you with this problem, you know, your project, but you are really rising to the occasion. And I know that Rick Davis, who was our presenter not too long ago with the human landing sites, is really anxious to see all of your project designs and your you know, the science that you're going to be going after. This is a real thing that NASA will be doing. So, you know, we're hoping that we're giving you some practice, but it's in real space. This isn't just something that fill up with the kitchen sink and the countertop. All right, fine. it was a lot, but you know what? I am not disappointed seeing the all-in attitudes of this group. And this is what we need going forward in terms of things that are going to be challenges in the time ahead. This is not just about one activity, one idea. This is about how do you get ready for the future? And the future does not just include, where you live in the neighborhood. It includes the planet and other planets as we're looking out towards NASA goals. So we're hoping to give you some practice in these kinds of problem solving. The teaming is important. I can't emphasize that enough in terms of finding that workability and that, way to optimize things. The thing we talked about a lot with the project managers was also, the human factor. Life is busy, life is crazy, things come out of left field, and all of you should be able to, be thinking about the nurturing and the culture of your team and how you're going to make that to where it's sustained beyond just the job and the things that you have in front of you on your plate. You need to be thinking about, how are you doing? Are you, when somebody doesn't seem as responsive, reach out and make sure they're okay. We need some of that really factored in as well in the culture and the world today. So be thinking about that. And the most successful teams we saw in terms of the last academy were the ones that actually did that. And they were much more than just, saying we got to make the deadlines. It was more about how we doing. Hey, kudos, high fives. We actually got that. We met that metric. We are moving along our schedule, but also we're a great team. We saw a lot of that attitude, and hopefully that's the kind of culture that your team is going to be embracing. And I can't tell you enough, there was out of the top 4, the PDRs that were, that we got last go round, which again, NASA was just like jaw dropped about. 2 of those were in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. I mean, those are teams that were pretty like down to primitive lifestyle and things that were just scrounging every day, and they really rose to the occasion and still turned out unbelievable work. So anyway, life's going to throw challenges at you. You're going to hear a little bit about that tonight from our guest speaker, and we sent you his bio. But you're going to be hearing a lot about the journey. And again, this is not very far removed from where you're sitting today and getting ready to kind of pursue that life pursuit. So with that.
Actually, one more announcement. So project schedules. So all of you submitted project schedules and they were great. We actually ran them through our master engineer that we have on staff, Don, and he's provided feedback on the rubric that we sent to you. He's provided comments and feedback for you and has posted the feedback onto your Trello boards.
Yeah.
So you should have all received that today, maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 teams that he still needs Google Drive access to. But aside from that, all 48, 49 teams, aside from that one, got them.
All right. So I think that is it. Are we ready to go?
No, that's it. No, I'm excited to get Sunny back on. This is going to be great. Sunny, you can take the rest of the hour and 20 minutes left.
Yeah, and we'll even flow you into the after show if you want.
There you go.
But it depends. I'm sure there'll be some questions. I know there always are. So with that, why don't we go ahead and I'm not going to do a big introduction, Sunny, because you're going to be really talking about things in terms of your introduction is going to be the next hour, basically. So which conference room are you in today?
First of all, I had no idea that I was live because I was sitting here kind of wishing that I had, so last time I did this talk, I had candy here and I had water. This time I didn't have a microphone, so I just got back from running around and getting that. And this time, instead of candy, I have sinuses and Vicks and Icy Hot.
Don't spread any germs with us today.
Yeah.
All there.
So we're in the conference room in 4 South. Building 4 South is really popular for not just being the flight operations building, one of the 2.
In what center?
In Johnson Space Center. Thank you for that. Yes. So this is in Johnson Space Center in 4 South. This is 2 floors beneath the astronaut floor. And this is the floor that I used to do a lot of work on for my internship. This room is kind of funny because when I was in this room and I was sitting in this seat during my internship, which is last year, the seat that I would be in is my boss's seat, and I would be somewhere. I'd be somewhere back over there. So it's nice to be at the front. But this is one of the many rooms that they would have conferences in for deciding or talking about the current status of science experiments going up. So before I get ahead of myself, my internship was with the International Space Station Program Science Office. And basically what that translates into is all of the science involved with the International Space Station program kind of gets funneled through one department, whether it's physics, chemistry, whether it's growing protein crystals in space, whether it's biology. All that stuff came through the internship I was in. And so this is a really cool room to be back in because I haven't been here since last year. But before I get into any of that, there's just a couple of things I wanted to show you guys, and I'm going to see if I can't screen share here. Let's see. Am I sharing?
You sure are. We can see your screen.
Okay, so in front of us are something that we call the foundations of flight. And that's right here, this list that begins with 1. And the reason I bring this up is because I know a lot of your speakers have been people from JPL and people who've designed rovers. And the part that I deal with as far as being at NASA is the human element. We deal with human lives and we deal with the daily risk trade-off of this amazing thing that we can put people in space and keep them orbiting around our planet at 17,500 miles an hour. And that we've been doing it for almost 20 years. But there's always some things that come with that, and risk is a big one. And so I'm just going to look over these real quick with you guys. And the first one says to instill within ourselves these qualities essential to professional excellence. And that breaks down into 7 things, and that is discipline, competence, confidence, responsibility, toughness, teamwork, and vigilance. And the ones that really stand out to me there are teamwork, competence, toughness, and vigilance. All the others matter, but to me especially, when we're talking about competence, that just means knowing your stuff. Knowing your stuff better than anyone else in the room, because when you're a flight controller, when you're one of those people sitting in mission control and it's your job to know what your system's responsible for, you have to be willing to take a stand, which also flows into toughness, because toughness means that you're willing to stand up and tell the person in the room, who is your flight director, who is the person telling you what to do all day, to stand up and tell them when they're wrong, to tell them that no, you're going the wrong way, and the toughness to get up after you mess up the first time and just keep going. We don't all have perfect days. We all make mistakes on console, and some of you might be familiar with some of the mistakes that NASA has made with respect to the human spaceflight program. And then that comes into teamwork. You know, we always work in teams. Even when we sent people to the moon, we didn't just send one person to land on the moon. There was someone there right there with him. When you work as a team, we've learned that you do better work and you can do more together as a team than any one person can. And then vigilance, you know, always being attentive to the dangers of spaceflight and never accepting success as a substitute for rigor in everything we do. Not thinking, well, we got away with it last time, so we'll get away with it this time. And that goes into number 2, which is to always be aware that suddenly and unexpectedly, we may find ourselves in a role where our performance has ultimate consequences. And that refers to the loss of our crew. Whenever we talk about something as far as priorities in the Flight Operations Directorate, the very first priority is the safety of our crew. Then it's the safety of our vehicle, the International Space Station, or those vehicles that are docked to it, and then the success of our mission. So our people really always come first, and we are always vigilant with ourselves and with our work in order to ensure their safety. And the final one is to recognize that the greatest error is not to have tried and failed, but that in trying, we do not give it our best effort. Every day we are pushing the limits of what we can do. All the time we're trying to get more done. And when we're doing that, it's not just because you know, the world expects us to do it. It's because sometimes the way to move forward, you can't always take baby steps. Sometimes you just have to jump into it. And we always try to jump into it safely, but we always try to jump into something new. So before I get all, I love this stuff. So before I get all into it too much, my name is Sonny. Currently I'm with CI5, That is the environmental systems branch. And I'm currently in training to become a flight controller for mission control. The system that I work with is responsible for things like oxygen generation on the space station, CO2 scrubbing. So if you've seen Apollo 13 and the kind of things that happen when you can't scrub CO2 from the cabin, that's the things that we do. Generating water from urine, turning urine back into drinkable water. Those are the kind of systems that I'm involved in, as well as emergency procedures. So if there's a toxic atmosphere, if there's a fire, or if there's a rapid depressurization. But being here is something that I never thought that I would do. I know a lot of people have plans, and no one becomes president on accident, and no one becomes an NBA player on accident. And I had no idea that I would be sitting here 6 months ago. Whenever I first came into this place, the thing I remember first coming into NASA, into Johnson Space Center, was the flags out front. We have flags flying outside of Johnson Space Center, and the ones that stuck out to me were not the American flag or the Texas flag. It was the flags that represented international cooperation. This is a place that brings together countries that sometimes don't come together for much else. Whenever we are trying to leave the planet, it seems that we all come together more than we might when we're all trying to stay on the same planet. So it's a very unique place to work, and it's always an honor to work in a place where so many sacrifices have been made. But if I had to start talking about where that whole thing started, it was probably back in 2012. I'd always been kind of a space junkie my whole life. I always thought it was really cool. And in 2012, on August 6th, the Curiosity rover was going to land on the Red Planet. And I remember staying up all night and telling my mom about it, and she's like, I'm going to bed. I'm not staying up for that. And so I'm staying up. It was pretty late, and around midnight, I think, Curiosity beamed back that first black and white picture of just, sand, essentially. And I was losing it. I thought that was so cool. And I was starting my senior year of high school in a few weeks. And I knew I was going to be just chasing after a dream to become a doctor. That's what I always wanted to do. And after I saw Curiosity land, and I just kept thinking, I didn't know what kind of doctor I wanted to be. And then at that point I was like, I want to be a flight surgeon. And so I'll be a doctor for NASA, either a flight surgeon as an astronaut or a surgeon as in the console position at mission control. And so when I went into my high school senior year, I took EMS. And I really should not have been in that class because my grades were not that great. My ambition and motivation were here, and then my grades were somewhere down here, and I was existing in the middle of that. And but there's a teacher who believed in me, and she let me get into the class because I kept asking her questions all the time, and she liked that. So she let me join in EMS, and in my time as an EMT, I got to do amazing things. I got to save people. And I also got to be with them in their last moments. And that was a significant, a part of my life that has had a significant effect on where I am today, and the position that I'm in today. Coming out of high school, though, my grades weren't really there. And I decided that I had to go to junior college to kind of get my stuff together. I could have gone somewhere else, but I didn't really know who I was and what my path was, and I just needed to go stay close to home and kind of figure myself out. So I attended Lone Star Community College here. I've lived in Houston my whole life, so it was a college just up north a little bit. And I was working to get my degree in biology. So I started taking my basics courses for biology. And I got my first job and things were looking good. And then on March 24th, 2014, my dad was shot and killed at his place of work, somewhere he'd worked for over a decade. And so I lost my dad that night. And I was really working so he could see me go to college, one of the colleges that he would sit down and watch the football games for in Texas. So I lost my dad that day, and that changed my entire plan. And it was a weird place to be because I was an EMT and I was there, on the scene when it happened, and I got to see all these things and see, um, just I can kind of, it's one of those things that when it happens and you close your eyes, you can put yourself right back there and remember the smell of things and the colors of things and things, like that. And that changed my entire view and my plan. And I realized that medical school was expensive, right? Um, you don't have great grades, you don't have a great plan, and you want to go to medical school, and it costs something like 250,000 on average, right? Um, so I thought, okay, that's not going to work. I'm going to go for something safer. It doesn't matter if I don't care about it. And so what that equated to was accounting. Uh, and I'll tell you what, I've taken a lot of difficult classes in college. Accounting was probably the most difficult class I've ever taken. The math wasn't that hard, but it's something I really didn't care about. Um, and so when I went back to community the next semester, I switched all of my main courses to accounting and business, and I was still taking biology classes on the side because it's that part of your life that gets you through the rest of it. And so I could go and take all these accounting classes that I was barely awake for, and then I get to go do some biology or some chemistry or things that I really liked. And so that was enough for me. And I thought that I would get my degree in accounting. That would give me an income source right out of college, and I could take care of my mom and my sister. And that way my sister could go and pursue whatever it was she wanted without any kind of boundaries. I mean, that was something I took on as a responsibility. That's what I wanted to do. So I got a job at this hotel called Hyatt Place a few months after I lost my father and all this happened. And I was going to school full time, and I was working at this hotel. And so I think it was around March of 2015 or 2014 or something like that. And I think it's 15. And all these NASA scientists end up flooding through the doors of this hotel. And it turns out there's this conference going on here in Houston called the Lunar Planetary Science Convention. I hope I said that right. And so here I am at this hotel working as a bartender. And in this hotel, you worked as a bartender, and you worked as a front desk staff, and you worked as a cook. So you were running around all the time. And it's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and all these scientists are just getting back from the conference hall down the street. And so there's people at the bar talking about Mars and telemetry and a bunch of words that I didn't understand. And it was just the coolest thing. And so I'm running back and forth cooking food, and I'm just in the middle, I'm just kind of sitting down and kind of like listening to their conversations. I'm checking people in, and my right ear is still paying attention to something about space. So it was amazing being in that atmosphere, because I didn't really get that anymore at college. And so it kind of brought that spark back up. And I got talking to some people, and I actually met Sherry there. And I told Sherry I wouldn't talk too much about how we met and all that, but she was really someone who, that was one of the first times that someone has sat there and listened to me and made me feel like I could believe in myself again. So it was life-changing. Again, one of those things, you can put yourself in that moment, you can see where you were in the room and what you were feeling at the time. That was something that kind of made me keep pushing. And so the conference left, and Sherry gave me a sticker, I remember, in a USB drive from the conference that had all these PDF files. And she also gave me a NASA sticker. And I went home and I put that NASA sticker on my laptop that I'd gotten right out of high school going into college. I still have that laptop, and now, of course, it's covered in tons and tons of other stickers from here, but that one is still in the middle, and that still keeps me centered, remembering where I came from. But anyways, so that conference was there, and I met Sherry, and that spark kind of got ignited. But I was just transferring out now of junior college and living in Houston, and I was going to Austin, to the University of Texas at Austin. And when I was going there, I really, I was honestly still pushing towards accounting or something businessy, and I thought maybe I'd get my minor in biology or some other field that I could just go to those classes to kind of get that sense of enjoyment. And so I was still going for a business degree, and it was I was transferring in junior year, right? This was after 2 years of community college. And I'm sitting there in my classes, and oh my gosh, I couldn't do it. I mean, I couldn't look myself in the mirror in the morning and be like, this is what I want to do, or this is who I'm going to be. Um, so I switched. I mean, when I say I switched, I mean, it took like an entire year to convince my department to switch me over and the other department to accept me. But I just realized that I couldn't keep going to class for accounting, and that there was something bugging me. It was that I'd realized that it's not about what's going to get me through the day anymore. It started becoming about what kept me awake at night. What kept me awake thinking at night, and it definitely wasn't accounting. Um, Even though that would have been super handy at like tax season, like right now. But it definitely wasn't accounting. It was science. It was the unknown, or all these questions that I had about science. And so I changed back to biology. But of course, now it's basically senior year and you've changed your major. So the department's not going to give you a lot of research to do. Um, then you have all these 8 a.m. classes because you're now getting the bottom of the selection pool. Um, and so it's getting toward the end of my senior year and I have no experience. I have no internships. I have nothing. And, um, Sherry throws this wild option at me because, again, I don't want to go to medical school still, right? Because it's still something I can't afford. Even though I'm doing biology, I still can't afford medical school. And again, the grades weren't there, but even if they were, it's just too much time away from my family, and that wasn't acceptable for me. So I'm talking to Sherry, and Sherry kind of throws this Hail Mary at me, and to me it was a Hail Mary, and she's saying, "Why not apply for a NASA internship?" And I'm thinking, yeah, sure, I'll apply for a NASA internship. Yeah, I'll become an astronaut or something. And she's like, no, I'm serious. Why don't you just throw in an application? And there's a place that I think you'd be a good fit. And um, so I made the application, right? I said, hey, why not? Sure. At least I can say I've applied to NASA before. So I threw in the application. Okay, so they ended up wanting to have an interview with me, which I was like, okay, maybe they just interview everyone. I found out a few days later that they wanted an interview. I'm like, okay, sure. And this is funny that they emailed me and they said, hey, here's the date for the interview. It's going to be 9 a.m. at this date. And they added this line at the bottom that says, does that work for you? And so I checked my schedule and I'm like, oh man, I'm really not doing too well in geology, or it was plant physiology. It's one of those classes. And I messaged her back and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I have a class that day. Can I push it by an hour or two? And she kind of responds back and she was like, okay, when I said like, does that work for you? I didn't really mean if that works for you, because, just make it work. And so I made it work. I just kind of walked out of my geology lecture when the time came for that interview, and I walked into one of the rooms across the hallway, and I log on to my computer just because I had some things up that I was looking at, and I get a phone call. And on the other end of this phone is the chief scientist of the International Space Station, the deputy chief scientist of the International Space Station, a lot of the associate scientists of the International Space Station, and they're all asking me these great questions. It's 9 a.m. I've had like half a cup of Folgers coffee, and I really should have been more prepared. But I mean, I don't even have like my water with me now. Why would I have my coffee with me then, right? So I'm crazy nervous. Um, Somehow they like what I said though, because I found out again in geology class, but like a week later, that they wanted to give me an internship. And I walked out of that geology class, and this time I didn't go across the hall. I mean, I walked straight outside, and I remember I called my mom and I called Sherry, and the whole time I'm losing it. I'm just it was like that time where everything kind of clicked, where you didn't think anything would work out. You had no idea where you were going, but you were kind of just following a path because it was the only path that you could follow, and you had no idea where the ending was. But that seemed like everything just kind of clicked, and so I'm so happy, and I'm standing outside, and then the crushing realization of like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? So I've gotten this internship, but now what have I gotten myself into? That, and also, wow, I've got an internship. How do I never leave now? So all these thoughts started coming together, and my first day here, um, this kind of goes to show you like I'm serious. I'm a klutz. My first day here, we're supposed to go to orientation, and this is the day before the government decided to have a shutdown again. And there's two different orientations because there's two kinds of internships, in case you guys don't know. There's a Pathways internship. That's your traditional co-op. The Pathways internship, the students who are selected for that, they are brought into a room and they're actually sworn in as temporary civil servants. So they actually, do the whole swearing in process. And then there's other interns who greatly outnumber those Pathways interns who come in for either a fall, a spring, or a summer semester, or multiples, up to 3 of those. Um, and they don't swear in. They come in. They don't have any guarantee of job placement afterward. The co-ops, the Pathways have, if they do enough tours and someone likes them at their center, they have a very high chance of placing for a full-time position after. But when you come in as a normal intern, there's no real, you're going to get hired after this. It's just you're here for the experience. That was the kind of internship I was in. So naturally, I walked into the orientation for the other internship, and 10 minutes into it, I'm getting sworn in and I have no idea what I'm doing now. And I just raised my other hand. I just remember having both of my hands up and I'm just like, I don't think I should be here. And she goes down the roster and I'm not supposed to be there. Anyways, I come to work and these people are amazing. The chief scientist, the deputy chief scientist, all these people who have these crazy cool titles and they're just normal people. I know a lot of you guys are engineers. I'm a biologist. And just to kind of pick on y'all, whenever I had engineering friends in college, they weren't always the most sociable people. That's not how it was here. Everyone was very, very warm and welcoming and trying to work with you. And my team threw things at me all the time. My first day here, I was given a paper. They like to mess with you. They gave me a paper on the alpha magnetic spectrometer 02, which is a particle detector which sits on the International Space Station. And they come out and they give me a bunch of scientific articles, like 3 of them from this thing. And they're like, hey, can you read that and summarize it? And so I'm like mind blown. I'm like, yeah, sure. I skip lunch and I kind of work on it. And I summarize these papers down. Again, biologist, so I do my best. And I send it to David, who's one of my mentors, and David reads it. And 11 o'clock that night, I'm feeling good. I'm like, wow, that was a great first day. And then David emails me at 11 o'clock and he's like, hey, that was pretty good. Do you mind presenting it at tomorrow's meeting, the communications panel? And I'm thinking, yeah. And then I walk into this room the next day and it's a room just like this, right? It's huge. There's people everywhere. And so I stand up and my first thing is like, does anyone here have a degree in particle physics? And no one says a thing. And then I'm all comfortable because I'm like, yeah, me neither. And so, the first day they're throwing things at you like this. And that's been amazing, is that people, when you come and work at a place like this, I've never worked anywhere like it before because people here are essentially being paid to learn all the time. People walk around here with backpacks. That's the norm. Is carrying a backpack. You're always learning. And so people are always keen to know new things and ask questions and find the answers. And so they trusted me, and they kept trusting me, and they eventually put me onto a project called Benefits for Humanity. And I'm sorry if I'm going on here for a little bit. Let me just put this up really quick. The Benefits for Humanity publication, and see, I made a slideshow, and of course I don't use it. This, if you want to go on YouTube later, I really strongly encourage you to go and look up the International Space Station Benefits for Humanity. They put me on this project, which basically summarizes, all the technical accomplishments, the scientific, educational, and the new one is the economic accomplishments of the space station. Because a lot of people think, well, there's this thing up there and it's got some people in there, but what's it really doing? Why are we spending all this money on it? And so they picked me, a biologist, and my mentor, who's an aerospace engineer, to go and build a section on the economics of the space station. That is a really weird combination. So I got to learn all about these economic terms. It's like being back in accounting class, right? Which is kind of hilarious because now I'm getting to really use accounting techniques and things like that. And I never thought I would use them again. But we built this section, and it would be coming into work, and my boss, Brian, my friend, he would be like, hey, let's write a section on this and let's do that. And I was getting all this raw research data from contractors who were doing all this research. And it ends up becoming, a project that lasts me 9 months. I come back I'm there for the first tour. And at the end of the first tour, after the first, 5 months, I'm thinking, hey, Brian, Kurt, I love this project. and I'm spending all day on it, and we're still not done yet. Can I come back for the next tour? And they said, sure. And I came back for the next tour. And so I was there for 3 tours. So again, let me slow down. When I first got this internship opportunity, right, I was in my senior year of college. So I actually delayed my graduation by an entire year to do the internship, because the first time I delayed it was for, 1 semester. And then I delayed it again for the summer. And then just this last fall, during my last internship, I get an email in like October, and it's my college. And I'm not going to lie, I had blocked my college's emails, a lot of them, because they were just things I didn't really need anymore because I was working here. And they're like, "Hey, man, we noticed that your catalog is going to expire. Did you feel like getting your degree in biology?" So I was like, "Yeah." So I just graduated last December. I almost forgot to graduate, but it was because I was so busy here, and I totally forgot that I didn't have a degree. Right? Why can't I be an intern forever? Um, Totally worth it. Anyway, so they put me on this project, and it worked out great. And it was, I'm not sure how many of you have served in the military or how many of you have worked for the government, but there's a certain kind of pride that you can feel when you're contributing towards something bigger than yourself. And it was definitely a big moment for me when they showed me on the front of this that when you open up the book, that my name is in all these sections. It was stuff that I'd been working on for hours and hours and days, and we'd come in early and we'd stay late, and just seeing my name all over it was probably the most crazy feeling I've ever had. Getting to show my mom something like that. I mean, I wish I could have shown my dad, but I was so happy to see that. And it wasn't just my name, but it was all the teammates that I see on there that I worked with every day in and day out, figuring things out. And knowing that my first publication was a NASA publication I never would have expected that. So it's been a ride all the way through. So after the internships are over, well, after almost the last one's over, right? It's a whole year. So I'm 2/3 of the way through. The last internship, I get called into my boss's office, and he's like, listen, most times when people do internships here, they go to other departments too. They don't groundhog into one department. They want to see the whole center. And I'm kind of like, man, I really love science. Like, so I've been stuck here. And he said, well, if you had to end up somewhere, where would you go? In NASA. And so I'm thinking, well, like, what's anyone going to say? What's a kid going to say? You're going to say mission control. So I said, I'd want to end up in operations and mission control. So he's like, well, I mean, take it seriously and go and talk to some people, and I was being really careful not to go for favoritism and nepotism and try to encourage someone to hire me, but just go next door and ask some people what their day is like. So I went over and I got to bug them about, hey, how's your day? Do you think someone like me is a good fit for it? And they said, maybe, yeah. And they said, put an application in. So I put the application in probably around June, July, something like that. And I'm sitting in a meeting in October, right? This is long gone from when I put that application in. I'm sitting in a chair just like this. I'm holding my laptop and I'm kind of working on benefit stuff. And I get this email from a guy I haven't talked to in 3 months. And he's like, hey, do you want to come do an interview for that thing that you talked about like 3 months ago? And I literally dropped my laptop, like not out of like shock, but just out of like being a klutz and being like so excited that I dropped my laptop on the floor in the middle of a meeting. And I was super excited. And so they called me in for this interview. A phone interview. And then they called me in for an interview. And so this is the cool part to me, is when they interview people in the flight operations directorate, it is not like a typical interview. The interviews here run for like something like 7 hours. You get in the morning at 8 a.m. and you're doing a technical presentation for a room full of people, and then you're doing thought experiments. I might throw a thought experiment at you. I might they ask me questions like, why does it look like astronauts are floating? in the International Space Station, and you get certain constraints, of how you can answer the question. And so to me, that was just like, if you have to give it in 2 sentences, why does it look like that? And if you have to explain it at a basic level, that was fun for me. That was like, wow, even if I don't get past this interview, that is just such a cool way to do an interview for a person, and to play games and to kind of do a stress test for 7 hours of the day, to see if someone's a good fit for that position. So it was an amazing interview, and it's something I'll never forget. And then at the end of the day, um, I'm going to tell you a quick story about the interview before. But at the end of the day, I get called into the office for the guy who had originally emailed me back. And he says, I want you to go home. And I had talked to 3 different console positions that day. So Ethos, which is my people, Cronus, which is the communications people for the entire station, uplink, downlink, and the power people. They all interview you together. And he said, I want you to go home and, there's no definite answer yet, but I want you to email me by Monday morning, where would you want to land first, second, and third out of those groups? And so this is one of those moments where I just looked him in the eye and I just kind of said, there's nowhere that I want to be beside Ethos. I mean, I've dealt with the risk of managing human lives before, and there's nothing that I care about more than biology and chemistry and all these things that make me happy. And I told him that's the only place that I wanted to end up. And then about 20 seconds later, he said, good, because you're hired. And that was the coolest moment, right? That was insane. That was like, wow, are you serious? And the reason that was cool, guys, the reason that was cool is because I was so tense the entire day, not just because of the interview. This is a story I don't even think I've told Sherry. So the day before the interview happens, I have to put on my suit and see if it still fits and everything. And I noticed that the suit pants are a little tight, right? And let's just say I tore my suit pants going right up the middle seam, right? And so I had this big rip in my pants the day before my interview. So I go down to the local dry cleaners, and I'm asking the lady inside, and I'm like, look, I have an interview tomorrow. Can you please sew these up? And she's like, I just showed her the pants, and she's just like, no, and I'm like, look, just put a patch back there and just sew it up, and I'll be real careful. And she's like, all right, but you got to be real careful. So the whole day through this interview, this interactive interview process, I'm sitting there wound up tight. They think my posture's great. Probably not. I'm probably making sure I don't rip my pants as I walk around this room. So the whole day goes by, and I get through it, and I'm sitting in this guy's office, and he gives me my dream job. I'm amazed my pants didn't rip. I mean, they ripped as soon as I got in my car and I put my foot up to get into my car. They ripped. But the whole day, like somebody was like looking out for me and made sure that my pants didn't rip. So it was a ride. But now I'm sitting somewhere where I never thought I'd get to. Every semester after the first internship, I thought I was going to be unemployed and looking for a grad school position. After the second internship, I thought I was going to be somewhere else. And even after the third one, I didn't know, where I was going to be. And so every single day is an honor to work with these people. The things I've learned is that you always have to speak up. I mean, you literally always know something that someone else doesn't, right? I mean, there's something inside of your head that no one else in that room knows because you haven't said it out loud. So you should always be letting people in on your inner monologue and building that connection with people, and becoming a better unit for your team. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned being here. But you're never going to see things coming. I mean, there's not always a clear and defined path. Things are going to go crazy. And I'll tell you guys right now, if I could go back and I could change some of the things that got me here, if I could, that night on March 24th, if I could change what happened that night, I would change all that and I wouldn't be here in a heartbeat. I'd rather none of that have happened to my family. But sometimes there's going to be things that push you to become someone or be something that you never thought you could. So all those nights that you're up late and things that don't make sense, just remember, it's not about what's getting you through your day. It's about what's keeping you up at night thinking. So that's it. I don't really have anything else to say, and my pants are still not ripped. So,
well, I want you to go over. We skipped past that a little bit. I want you to go over more granularly that interview day and how it started and the kinds of questions and things you got. Because that
yeah,
was talk about the stress test kind of aspect of what Mission Control's like.
yeah. I'm trying to think if I can say the interview questions, um, since that's kind of their internal
Oh,
process. But
that's true. That's true.
yeah, so I'll say more. I'll say that in a normal interview, they're going to ask you questions like, tell me about a time where um, you were a member of a team, or tell me about a time where you handled someone being rude to you, or how you handled stress, or this or that. These people want to hear more about a time where you messed up and you knew it was your fault. How do you handle things like that? Tell me what situation you've been in where your team was affected potentially catastrophically by an error you made, and you know it's your fault. Where'd you go from there? Um, they really want to know how you are communicating your faults as a person, because there's success to be had for sure. But what matters in an environment like Mission Control, where every single thing you do can result in failure, is your failures as an individual and how you handle those. There are people who worked here during Challenger in Columbia, and when I say that, I should show you that right there on that wall, right over there, you can see the crews for Challenger in Columbia, and that's because people will never forget here what happened on those days for Apollo 1, for Challenger, and for Columbia. And always we're trying to grow from that and understand that um, our mistakes are what define us, as well as our successes. So during the interview, you're going to get questions like that. And you're also going to get things like, thought experiments. I'll give you one because there's, I'm going to ask, I can see your chat. So let me just ask, how many biologists are in here? How many bio majors? Just give me like a yes, if there's any. Okay, there's one. Okay, cool. All right, there we go. There's my people. All right, great. So it's not just so guys, when I was here for my first day, and I'll get back to that in 1 second, but when I was here for my first day at boot camp for my class of flight controllers, everyone is like an engineer. And I'm the only guy in there who's a biologist. I think there's some physicists, but pretty much everyone's physics or engineering. And then I stand up and I'm like, yeah, I like plants and evolution. So it's weird being here, right? So during my interview, they kind of gave me a question like, explain very briefly and at a very rudimentary level. For example, if all humans came, and it's supposed to be a silly question in a way, but if all humans came from apes, then why are there still apes? So explain that, at a low level in a couple sentences. And like when it's 9 in the morning and someone asks you a question like that, and you've got a half a cup of bad coffee in you, you start remembering things like, yeah, what was that conversation I had in the hotel one time with Sherry? And I think the first line I said was just like, I think I said like, if if all Americans came from Europeans, then why are there still Europeans? It's just Americans came from Europe and their habits changed and their diets changed and the things they did change. And so their culture changed. And so just like that, evolution happens through people separating and having different habits and time moving onward. So you're going to get weird questions, and it's up to you to have that kind of a creative response that also gets the point across. And the point of that is, when you're in mission control and you're in charge of this very complex system, one of 20 systems, and there's a flight director, and he asks you a question, it is not his job to know your system. It is your job to know your system, and it is your job to tell him in layman's terms what's going on with the system. So if you go into all of these technical things, that's not helping anyone but yourself. This place is full of acronyms and jargon, but whenever you're in that situation in mission control, you are not using jargon. You are not being confusing. You are not being diffuse. Your job is to be, all your responses are verbatim and they're as lowly technical as possible. It's your job to know your system and to communicate it to an 8th grader, right? So the interview is very dynamic. Now, yeah, not every interview here is like that. I think Sherry told me that a few people were freaked out that it's like a 7-hour interview. It's just in this kind of an environment, you're in such a stressful position. And I'd been in a situation in EMS, and several times I've been in a situation in EMS where decisions I've made have had what I think were ultimate consequences. You know, I was just an EMT, right? So I'm not the guy who's hooking up the IV to someone's their veins. I'm not the one pushing adrenaline. But if I can maybe do one of my procedures 10 seconds faster, and someone else could have done something 20 seconds faster, then someone else could have done this faster, and maybe someone is still alive. So being in situations like that kind of influences you to think in different ways. And I wouldn't say think creatively, but think in ways that you can communicate things better and more efficiently. So whatever job you're doing right now, wherever you are in life, I mean, you are gaining experience that you will use in a place like this. A lot of us came from hospitality backgrounds, dealing with people yelling at you at the front desk, customer service. You know, that's huge. I could find somewhere on this wall that says customer service, because you guys are our customers, right? The country is our customer. All of our partners interact with us in that kind of a format, customer and service providing. And so the skills you're learning now are really the skills that you'll need to be here. There's no set formula to end up here. And mine is definitely weird. And once you get here, by the way, you're going to end up with way too much NASA stuff. Like I'm wearing this, and then I'm wearing this, and like my socks are NASA. And so there's not really a path to get here. But just keep, just keep doing what you're doing, and know that there doesn't always have to be an answer at the end of it. An answer that you can see coming from a ways away.
But do you have the NASA shoes?
Sherry
and I saw Sherry and I saw some at headquarters this past summer.
Yeah, I really want to get those Vans. When they came out, someone offered to get them with me, and they were on sale for like $85, $90, and now they're like 130 or something like that. But I really do want them. See, but they say Kennedy Space Center. They don't have a pair that say Johnson Space Center, or so I'd have two if they had those.
Nice. So we're ready to move on to some questions then? You want to take some questions from our folks here?
Yeah, it keeps me from making things up to say.
Sherry, you're muted right now.
Let me unmute. I just want to add a little bit too. The journey you've been through, Sonny, and again, that's pretty extraordinary in terms of your path and where you are now, and following that dream, and not giving up. What I'd like to say is that nothing you do is ever wasted if you don't let it be. It's additive to where you get to go and who you become. And so it may be working at the front desk at Hyatt Place. It may be, doing all kinds of things. But even the people in your interview had said, those people skills that you gained was probably in your benefit in terms of getting this job as well. So, it seems like sometimes we're in that waiting room and we don't know what's ahead or if we'll ever get there. But if you take it and you take it on and you just allow it to give you that whatever lessons it's handing you at the moment in terms of life, those things can be used and they will not be wasted. And that's just from my old experience as well.
Yeah, you make a really good point about people skills and communication there, because when you come here, there's that part in the foundations that says competence. And competence is something you gain by being here. I mean, they're going to make sure that you know your stuff before they put you in that front room. But when you come in here, what really matters is your ability to communicate with people. I mean, we can teach you all the things. They can teach me all the things. But if I can't work with people, and if I can't work with my team, then none of it matters. And I guess I'd show you guys one thing when I talk about competency and why teamwork matters. This will probably be mirrored on the screen. But so before I get to the front room and mission control, that's called a front room certification, a FCR, FCR, front control room. There is, for every person you see on console, for most people on the TV where you see them on their console and they've got a mic, there's usually at least one person in a back room supporting everything that they do, double checking things that they do. And that's called, for us, it's called a MIPSR, MPSR. And so the first certification you get, that I'm going to get, is for the back room. And then after that, I train and I do more, and then I get to go to the front room. The back room certificate takes 71 weeks. So this is every single one of these is a different lesson or essentially a class that you take. And I am right there at boot camp. And so that's where you start. And so you really have to be good with people and communicating, because you're never going to make it through that flow. I mean, I'm a biologist. I'm never going to make it through pipes and things like that, and learning blueprints, unless I can work with my friends who are engineers, not just in my department but others. And so communication is huge. People skills are huge.
No, that's a great point. And so you'll be ready for the back room after 71 weeks.
That's right. Yeah, about 71 weeks, and we're about 4 weeks in now.
Right. But you're going to work every day at Johnson Space Center. You drive it through that gate, and I've been at Johnson. I've worked there, and it's a pretty awesome feeling knowing that when you walk into 4 South, which that's the astronaut building basically. That's a pretty amazing feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty. It was amazing enough that another part that I kind of missed is when I first got the internship offer. For the first about 4 months, I was commuting. So I lived in Houston, but I live up with my mom and my sister. I did for a long time, and that's about 60 miles from Johnson Space Center. So to get to work at 8:30 in the morning, I'd be getting up at 5:30, 6 a.m. and getting out and driving 90 minutes to work, and then driving back 90 minutes from work at the end of the day, and then get up and do it again. And that was the most exciting thing I've ever done still. I mean, it was brutal traffic. It was not fun. And I think I put about 30,000 miles on my car last year just going to and from work.
And commuting across Houston is not an easy thing. And so
it's
crazy.
And now it feels really good to be across the street, but that was something that didn't even cross my mind then. I mean, when you're following something like a dream, 120 miles a day is not really a big deal. It's an amazing feeling. Yeah.
Well, we should get to some questions, and if you want, I can throw some to you from the chat. And one of them was, what big lifestyle change did you have to make to prepare yourself for this future? Was there anything that comes to mind?
Lifestyle change.
That's from Nam. Yeah.
Huh. Okay, so yeah, I guess one big thing, we've talked about being a people person, and that's not the easiest thing to do. I haven't always been an extroverted person, and I wouldn't say that I am now. I'd say I'm just better with people. A major lifestyle changes that I had to make was putting myself out of my comfort zone. So I'd never play. The best way to make friends sometimes is to do things like sports, and I never did that as a kid. And so some of the lifestyle changes have just been putting myself out there in uncomfortable situations. Things like I joined the cycling team at the University of Texas at Austin, so I cycled for the collegiate team. And you learn a lot about yourself being in uncomfortable situations, like breaking your collarbone and just becoming friends with people that you really thought you had nothing in common with. So one lifestyle change is definitely just becoming less scared to talk to other people and less concerned that they're going to judge you for your ideas. Again, you know something at least that no one else knows or has thought of. So in my head, I think that, hey, it should be my job to share that, even if it's silly. You should be the kind of person that starts off a conversation in the elevator, even if you're only going 2 floors up and the other person's going to the 10th floor. Being that kind of a person is something that you will enjoy benefits from for the rest of your life. And one thing that I really got out of that was, and I guess I can pull this up really quick. During my internship, I took advantage of the resources that NASA had, and I kind of went and I set up some outreaches, and I got a huge support from NASA from it. I'd never set up outreaches, and for my first outreach, I kind of asked a middle school teacher if he'd like me to speak to his science students, his science club, 20, 30 kids. And he emails me back a few weeks later. I guess if you have a NASA email, people just think you're way more competent than you are sometimes. And he gave me, 226 graders. And he's like, here's the entire lunchroom, gym, and all these classrooms. Do whatever you want. So we got to bring out astronaut suits. We got 16 interns to come out, a civil servant, and we just got to reach out to the community and really give back and talk about the things that NASA does, because a lot of the people who work here don't get a chance to talk about what they do because they're so busy doing it. And it's been amazing being able to reach out to the community, especially my local community, people who I know the kind of areas they're growing up in because I grew up in them. It's really been something, just having the confidence in myself to go in front of a crowd full of people and talk, and just know that on a human level that we should all be able to communicate with each other. And that's been a huge change, lifestyle change that I had to make, was just becoming more comfortable talking to people and not holding things in.
Well, I think that will be always a beneficial kind of skill that you can learn and get better at. The more that you do it, the better you get at it. Everyone has some reservations, but just being real and being honest, and kind of thinking about the things that can inspire other people. Just by sharing the passion that you have and what you do in everyday life. It's like you said, you found out these people are real people, and that's the way it is going to work every day.
Well, before we move on to the
Yeah.
Mentimeter questions, we actually have kind of like this record-breaking question that out of all of the speakers we've had, nobody's ever been asked before.
Hey.
Sonny, you ready?
Yeah.
Sebastian really wants to know, and we can save this for the after show. What is your diet and workout plan? And somebody else just asked, do you even lift, bro? Sonny Swole, they're calling you. You got a nickname there.
Diet and workout plan. It's been, lately it's been a lot of, I'm gonna have to be honest, man. It's been a lot of like really bad food. Just like, you walk around NASA, and not to talk down on like the people who work here, but after just years and years and years of working these kinds of desk jobs, people just, I can't blame them for wanting to get like McDonald's from down the street.
Yeah.
So for right now, it's just been a lot of, and shout out to my girlfriend is actually in this class right now.
Yes, she is.
Revealed.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
So she knows.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry, everyone.
So yeah, I love you, Nija. Sorry. So she knows that my diet is just garbage. I'm trying really hard to pick that up. And it's been really, one of the lifestyle changes here has been like coming to work at 8, and then you're doing, so boot camp is a lot of classes. You're learning about different systems. So, we get 3 days ago, I came into class, 8 a.m. Again, that really bad half cup of Folgers coffee, because caffeine jacks me up too much. And I get into class, and what are we doing at 8 in the morning? Orbital mechanics. And it's just like, oh my God. So you're going through all this technical stuff, and then at the end of the day, you don't want to go work out. You just want to go and get like a really soul foody kind of meal. Like Thai food has been like the best thing in my life so far. So I've been getting way too much Thai food, gummy bears, and every now and then there's maybe like a clean protein shake and some salmon in there somewhere.
Well, thanks for that. See, guys, there you go. You got your answer, because several of you were asking. But let's go back to the serious questions now. Not that wasn't serious. I mean, hey, we're preparing you for the real world. You guys have to know what life's like. So here we go. Here's some questions for you.
Do you want to pick, or do you want me to throw some at you?
You can throw some, and if I see one that I really want to answer, then, oh, by the way, there's someone saying, were you a C average student? I don't like to talk about it, but I wasn't really in the A's, and I was somewhere lurking in the B's. Like, I really, like, I know, so my girlfriend, right, she knows that she got like 1B in college. So she graduated with like a 3.9, and it bugs her that she got a 3.9. And I turned to her and I'm like, I remember every time I got an A on a test. Like, I even remember the classes I got A's on in college. So I was not a C average. I was probably like a B average, but like I tried hard for that B, and it was always just life circumstances getting in the way, whether it was family. There's been times I dealt with like depression, and that's always something you got to you work out. And NASA, by the way, if you look at their internship criteria, you're not expected to have like a 3.5 or a 3.6 or a 4.0. They really care about a holistic evaluation of who you are. I really think if you go on Pathways and you were to check, I really think it's a 2.9. Either it's a 3.0 or I swear it's a 2.9 GPA minimum.
It's 2.95. It has to round to a 3.
Yeah, so it has to round to a 3. It doesn't even have to be a 3 straight up. And so they really care about knowing that you're not just someone who has stuck to the books. You know, you've done things, you've worked, been involved with your community, and that you have other drivers to you besides just your grades. So that's been I'm lucky that they think that way. Yeah.
So, a couple questions here that I saw go by. Uh, what were some of the life experiences outside of academia that taught you the most about being a good team member? Ethan wants to know.
Not being a good team member. Um, Man, I hate to keep using that example. The best one is EMS. I can try to think of some other ones, but EMS, and this is outside of NASA. You said, right?
And you're using acronyms now, just like NASA people.
Emergency medical services. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Those tiara, those 3-letter acronyms
Yeah.
always slip out. So,
Yeah. And the question was outside of NASA, right?
well, just in your life, going through life that got you prepared to be a good team member. So, yeah, outside of NASA to start with.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have ever worked in teams before, but there's a tendency to sometimes if your teammates are slacking, then you decide to pick up all the slack, and you start carrying mountains on your back that are not yours to carry. And that's kind of who I was sometimes. Again, I wasn't good at talking to people. So becoming a better team member is understanding that your team is not trying to slack off. Your team is not trying to let you down and throw mountains on your back that are not yours to carry. But leadership really matters in a team, and every person should be a leader. You know, there's that you're only as strong as your weakest link, and everyone should be a leader. And becoming a leader in places outside of NASA, for example, you know, EMS. There are basic procedures in EMS. Like if you were to get into a car accident, you're told to stay in your car even if you feel fine, because the first thing that EMT is going to do when they come up is put a brace around your neck. You know, if I'm in a situation where things are so chaotic that someone is like, you know, we need to get an IV on them, forget the neck brace. You know, I've been in a situation where I've said no. You know, we have to put that on there because it's procedure and because you could cause damage. You know, it's just being able to be a leader is huge for being a part of a team. Even if you're not the active leader in that team, if that's not your role, um, leading your team toward the right angles really matters. And so, practicing leadership in my community, in my work, and I like to think with my siblings, you know, and trying to set a better example. That's been huge, and that's really helped me be a part of a team. And listening, right? Listening, being an active listener. Sometimes it's just easy to nod your head and think you got the idea of what someone's saying without actually absorbing any of the content. So becoming a better listener is a huge part of that too.
All right, so Corey has a question, and before we do that, I want to give a shout out to Corey, who just got an internship offer and accepted at Lockheed Martin today.
Nice.
So one of our Academy people actually is going to be doing a really cool Lucy internship at Lockheed Martin Space Division. So congratulations, Corey. But Corey wanted to know, in terms of the personality traits that you think might have actually, been advantageous in terms of, drawing people towards you versus other types of interns. What would there be anything particular that you would say helped you?
Oh man. Okay. I'm gonna pick the right words because you don't want to sound like you're patting yourself on the back, right?
No.
Personality traits that make you stand out.
Of course, you were talking to a bunch of engineers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was it that you were able to connect across disciplines? Because again, you're a science person, but what were the things do you think that you were able to sound like, or is it you're outgoing or?
Everyone has something. Everyone has something that you can plug into. So I met Sherry at Hyatt, right? When I'm working at that hotel, if somebody walks in the door, I would do the quirkiest things. Like if I thought someone's walking in looking sad that day, I swear to God, I would put on a British accent. I would check them in. And the whole time I'm using a British accent. And then right when they're done being checked in, I switch back to my normal voice and I'm like, hey, have a great day. And they're just, they're lost, like just being quirky and taking risks. I mean, people love when you do something to connect to them. So if you're talking to a room full of engineers or you're talking to a guest who doesn't have the best attitude, find a way to connect. I mean, I was presenting, my presentation when I was talking to this group was all about science, and it was about sequencing DNA on the International Space Station. And these guys are there working in the engineering parts, the pipes and the pressures and, this and that. How do you connect science to that? Well, why is their vehicle up there? Their vehicle's up there for science. The space station's not up there as like an engineering principle anymore. It's there to support science. And so connecting to a room full of engineers can be really easy when you know what's important to those people, knowing your audience. And so personality traits that make you stand out are knowing your audience and knowing how to click with almost anyone, right? Just elevator talk. I'm telling you, elevator talk will make you a pro, because you have to figure out how to get your message across concisely, like make that joke, and you got like 2 floors for that joke to hit, make someone laugh, and then you walk out. And that is like your elevator pitch is huge. So being quirky and not exactly knowing where your sentence is going before you start saying it. I have a really big problem with that. So um, coming off is knowing what you're talking about and being humble, things like that. Like I'm always the first guy to turn red in the face, when I'm talking to someone, because I always respect the position that person's in, whether it's someone. I mean, I'm the kind of person where my mom was going to talk to the waiter in a way like, raise her tone and stuff. Something's wrong with my food, I'm the last guy who wants to speak up and get my whole face turned red. Like I'm not great at confrontational communication. But being the kind of person who will step up and respectfully say things, and always respect the person that you're speaking to. They know something that you don't know either. And so I guess those are a few things, if that answers the
No,
question.
and I tell you what, the knowing your audience and being respectful and putting yourself in other people's places as you're working on your team, those are great advice kinds of things. And just understanding, and getting and doing the homework and be preparing yourself to actually be relevant in the places that you're going to go. I mean, you did that paper that you had thrown at you, and had to consume and actually come and present it to a bunch of subject matter experts in things but you went in and you did it, and you got yourself, in a place that you could be communicative and sound decent, but you weren't pretending to be a subject matter expert, but that really translated to all the people that were. So just knowing your audience is probably one of the biggest things you can be doing.
Yeah.
How do you go about, pushing your way through school and finding a way to get involved in the space ecosystem? That was another question that came about here.
Yeah. So let's see. Someone, so there's a part of that question that I should address, right? There's a lot of you are probably working and going to school full time, or going to work full time and going to school full time. And you guys know that, if someone were to ask you, oh, how do you do it, man? Like, how do you do both of those things? There's no concrete answer for that. I was talking to a colleague of mine, and he's like, it's you don't start carrying 1,000 pounds on your back all at once, right? You just start adding weight, and you just get stronger, and you get beat down, and you get stronger, and you keep going. And so the first part of that is you're having to manage your stress levels all the time. Whatever gets your stress out, manage your stress and be able to do everything that you need to. Still get your sleep on time. That's huge. But people here in FOD, a lot of these people run marathons. A lot of these people go to the gym. A lot of these people have physical activities that help balance their mental state. And so the tough part of getting through school and doing your job and getting involved in things you care about is that there's no secret. I mean, there's going to be times that you sacrifice things that you want to do, whether that's, I said sleep's important, but let's be honest, you're going to sacrifice your sleep. You're going to sacrifice relationships with your family, your girlfriends, your best friend. I haven't had a great time with my best friend in months. And I would do anything for that guy. And there's things that you're going to have to give up to chase things that you're not even sure you can accomplish. when it came to space, I was really lucky. I mean, I met Sherry and I got to get involved at local conferences. If you can go to a conference and be a participant, if you can help out at a booth, if you can help answer, even if it's basic questions about space, and you can work at a booth and maybe just help guide people through it. Conferences are places where people are very social. Um, some conferences, right outside the conference room, you're in a hotel, there's a bar there's people hanging out, there's people eating, drinking, people are talking. These are the places you can go and really make connections. I mean, you might think, hey, my professor is not the nicest guy, I'm not making a connection. Find out what conferences are coming out around you. Can you get into a conference? Will your university pay for you or give you a little, a push to get your wallet comfortable enough to send you to a conference? If you can walk into a conference and make some connections, that's huge. That's how you connect to people outside of your research environment. So that's one of the ways I got involved in space, and really, again, there was no plan, right? I had no idea a year ago that I would be involved in space. That was just something. The most involved I got in space was space movies, and so things kind of fall in your lap sometimes too.
Well, Nam has a really interesting question, and it goes back to your old neighborhood, I guess, Lone Star College. And so he was asking, he's at a college, it's community college, right, Sonny? Lone Star?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it's a community college, and he says, there's not a lot of people, even though it's near NASA, not a lot of people are interested in NASA because they don't think they have the skills. How can you
yeah.
encourage more people to participate or go after these kinds of jobs in STEM? So I think that's a great question. And again, we have a lot of students that are part of community college, and that's a great way to, make it economical and pursue your dream, which is fantastic, but it's not that you don't have skills.
Yeah, it's really not. So just thinking, okay, so there's a lot of you guys who are engineers and biologists in different fields. There's there's not an abundance of people here who went to Ivy League schools or even who went to huge state schools. There are a lot of people who started off in junior college, who started off in places where they didn't think they'd end up here. There are people here who are from disciplines that are non-STEM as well. NASA is really a place where and the agency has gotten so much better over the past decade or more, and Sherry probably knows more about that, but communicating to the public. How do you do that with engineers, right? How can I make a room full of engineers communicate to the outside world and market NASA? So we can't really have advertisements, but how do you sell NASA to the world? Um, People who are communication majors, people who do art and digital design, and people who are educators who can reach out to a community, to the global audience. I mean, NASA is a place for every skill set to grow and mature. You're not expected to have a matured set of skills when you're working here, because working here will be different than anywhere else you've ever worked. So your job is to show that you can handle that, right? For a position here that requires a STEM job, it's not like there's job applications out there that say you have to have 3 years of experience before you can get 3 years of experience. It's not like that. The reason they want you to maybe have a STEM degree is to show that you can handle that rigor in your life, that you can get through something. So NASA is not a place where you're expected to show up, completely matured and ready to go and handle every single problem. It's a place for you to grow. So as long as you continue to keep growing and keep learning more about yourself, as well as the people around you, but really learning about yourself and what you're capable and just keep pushing. Um, NASA is just another word, you can come work here too. Everyone here is always growing. The reason we work in teams is because we're not all geniuses, right? I mean, 100 brains can really come together as one sometimes. So does that answer the question?
That does. I think, again, it's not about where you start, it's where you aspire, have passion to. And I know a lot of people in a lot of the different mission programs that have stories about where seriously, a real story where one particular person was told they were so stupid, some teacher told them this, they were so stupid they were only going to be good enough to dig post holes. That person has now got his PhD in planetary geology and is one of the most amazing people in terms of their knowledge of the moon and Mars. And so, again, don't be defined what other people think. It's what's in your heart and what you're willing to do, and stepping out through those doors of crazy opportunities. That's what gets you to where you think, that you're going to be amazed.
I
And
mean,
the journey, what's that?
go on. Sorry. Go on.
Nope,
Go on.
nope, I'm done.
I was going to say there are people here, astronauts here, who have applied 6, 7, or 8 times to become astronauts, and there's a good 6 to 8 month, waiting time between every application. I mean, even people at that level who are extremely competent in the things they do and the skills that they bring to the table, just kept going. Just would not take no for an answer. I know people who have framed by their desk, a rejection letter from NASA, like, sorry, we're not going to bring you on as an astronaut, and they pin that to their wall because it's not something that brings them down. It's something that keeps them pushing.
That's right.
So.
Well, I think we're going to just pause for a little bit and just kind of, Dan, we're going to do some housekeeping real quick. And then Sunny, I know you're probably tired, but would you be willing to stay for a few more questions?
Yeah, that's fine.
In the after show?
Yeah.
All right. So I know some of the folks may have to sign off, but anyway, Dan, what do we need to say before anybody does? And then we've got a few more for Sunny before he takes off for the evening.
Well, like I said, we do want to remind everyone that we're off for spring break for 2 weeks from the academy, but we want you to make sure that you maximize that time. Of course, enjoy your spring break, but take the additional week, and definitely be safe. Take that additional week to work with your teams. Again, after meeting with the project managers, I think they walked away with some action items that they wanted to implement, and they've been communicating on the Trello boards, and so it's going to be a productive couple of weeks. We don't want anybody to feel like they're behind in the PDR in the process. We talked a lot today about the science leading the design and the mission. So Sherry, maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit more, because it's a big one.
And we see that a lot in the beginning academies, is that the engineers get all excited about their design and, hey, look what we invented, and here's our cool concept, and oh, what kind of science can you do with that? Because and it's just the opposite. In missions, it really is all about the science that drives the design. The science you need to get is where you start, and you work with the scientists to say, what is it that we're going after, and then you work the design. So make sure that you've got the horse in the right place in terms of the horse in the cart, and then work, as Sunny talks about, work to make sure you're listening to each other. Be part of the process. Don't just hand it off to the engineers. Be working with the engineers. Engineers query the scientists to say, is there another way we can do it? Or how about if we have extra science, or all those kinds of things. Be working back and forth. That's really the optimal workforce NASA's looking for in the future. And that's a big reason for this course, is getting the two disciplines to actually understand and cross-fertilize and optimize for the best outcome ever. And so I just want to make sure that we're making that very clear. And also, we're here to help. If there's anything you don't understand, we're going to give you, we told the project managers that today, or the program managers, we're going to give you a rubric that actually tells you what is supposed to be in each section. So section by section, we're going to give you, we're not going to make it, mystified. We're going to very much outline what you should be in there to be a professional grade PDR. So we want to make this successful. We want to have you be proud of the document that you, again, the thing that you come out with in terms of your PDR. We want that to be an asset to you in terms of a portfolio item that you can take on interviews. You can, take it and show people what your team, what your work is in terms of the quality of what you're able to put forth. We're hearing back from the people that have been through this program that this has really helped them be a player when they do internships or have those conversations with prospective jobs, career fairs, and other things. These are going to be discriminators for you to actually be more marketable. So what you're putting in is what you're going to get out. Mm-hmm. And it takes a team to put this thing together. And again, this is not going to reward you at all if you're not learning and owning this process. You're going to, you can say you kind of know things. When you do this completely and you work as a team, you are going to actually be fluid and understand what all these moving parts are. That's going to help you move up that ecosystem, up that kind of thing, to actually get those opportunities. So I can't emphasize, I know it's a lot of extra time. You're all busy people. You're taking crazy numbers of credits, but the people that are actually doing this are seeing results. So we're hoping that you're going to put yourself into that category and be willing to really step out there and be all in. So that's the thing. Patrick, you're wondering if you can use the PDR as part of your thesis. I would talk to your team just to make sure that you're being respectful of the efforts that everyone else put in, but there may be a part in there that you can take and segment off and do more research on, but I don't see any reason not. Just, again, you have to communicate with your team and have them either be cited or other things, or expand on the piece that you did and take it further. That's also a good thing. So, you know, there's all kinds of ways you can parlay this into the kinds of assets that will help you. Academy 2, and Dan, we've got to talk about when we're going to open the application for that. Probably in the next, when they get back from probably the spring break, we'll talk about within a week or two of that, of getting the applications open. But the applications and Academy 2 is going to be based on how to take an idea, mature it into a proposal in a selectable type of asset that you can be thinking about how to actually take your ideas, formulate a concept, a team, and pitch it to NASA and to other places to actually get money to fund it. So this is a very important process that hardly anybody touches on in terms of all the moving parts, I like to say, of a proposal. And you know, how that works, the whole regimen, what the reviewers think. You're going to be actually reviewing some things as well in terms of other proposals within the Academy 2, and have a chance to really get the behind the scenes and understand the knowledge of what it takes to actually be taking mission concepts and ideas to the next level. And as an undergrad, this is an amazing opportunity, and we're partnering with NASA to bring that to you. So this is something that is going to be a standalone academy. The people that have been through Academy 1 will get the first choice. I'm sure we will sell out in terms of these. I mean, we can only take about 475 people, and we had a waiting list for your academy of 150 people that we had to turn away. So again, you'll have first in terms of the people that have completed Academy 1, and I would highly recommend that you be thinking about Academy 2 and apply early. We'll have a cutoff date at some point to where we start letting the other people in, but we'd love to see you continue on and take your knowledge of what you've just done with the PDR and go in. So it's a pretty amazing opportunity that we've just gotten lined up. This is a brand new change we're doing for Academy 2, and I think it'll be very productive for you, and again, in your career preparation and pathway.
So we did, in our meetings with the project managers earlier, answer a lot of questions that may have been on the original question document that you asked. We are compiling additional answers to those questions and posting those. The goal is by the end of the weekend, possibly, Sherry. I think we've
my weekend is now booked with all the rest of your questions, all 822 of them. So I know what I'll be doing. So anyway, it's just going to be, you know, we really want to see you successful. Whatever stage your PDR is in, even if it's not perfect, we want you to turn it in at the deadline. We want to help you, even if it's after the fact, get you to the point where you finish that, you know, you reach that finish line. And so we're here for you. This is not about, you know, your capabilities. We're helping you to skill up. That is our job. So we want to make sure that you have that opportunity. I saw that there's an April 1st NASA internship deadline. And again, if you haven't applied, get in there and apply. You need, I think it's one letter of recommendation. You guys can help me on the chat if you've already applied. That people, you know, if you have somebody that can, yes, just one. Thanks, Jacob. That's all it takes. A professor, someone that you've worked with, you know, that's all it takes. They get a link. They go in, cut and paste into the internship application, and that will give you the chance to be in the running. So, you know, don't take it, you know, in what you're going to do. Quentin, would you recommend seniors apply for internships or jump into applications for jobs? It depends on where you are in your, if you're a degree in engineer, if you're not going on for a master's, there are opportunities out there. If you have the ability, I mean, right now the going price for NASA internships is $7,300 for 10 weeks in the summer. And you figure $730 times 15 weeks is what you get for an internship in the spring or fall. So there are semester internships too. Sunny did some of those in terms of not just summer. And so it's up to you if you want to delay your capability. If you get an offer before the time to graduate, then you can always, postpone your graduation like Sunny did, and get that internship as an undergrad. If you are graduated, there are very much fewer opportunities unless you're going to grad school to actually be able to apply. Most of the internships that NASA does are for undergrads. Fellowships are for people that are in grad school and already have an identified mentor and can identify someone at NASA that does similar jobs that you can link up and do that. But you have to have that all in place. So it's always good to, again, beat that deadline. You never know. We're already calling out people now that are starting to get offers. And it's not just NASA. It's if you're in aerospace or if you're in, engineering, there's a lot of other firms. Again, another one got a call from Boeing today. There's a lot of other things you can do. So, and Quentin, also, getting a job, if you get a job offer, there's always ways to grow and move towards other career pathways within the company as well. So that's just something to go. All right. With that, we are at the top of the hour. In fact, a minute over. We'll be able to continue on for a little bit, Sunny. When I know that you're fighting the sniffles and whatnot, I appreciate you being here tonight. Wish I could have sent you some orange juice or something to have in the control room. But all right. So for those of you that are signing off, have a safe time. We want to see you back in a few weeks, and we look forward to having you along. And you're getting a lot of thank yous from the people that are having to sign off tonight.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.
And so maybe you can throw the questions back up there.
Sure.
Or if you haven't had your questions done, maybe we'll just put them in the chat.
Yeah, or
and
you can raise your hand in Zoom and we can unmute you so Sunny can hear you.
This is the after show, isn't
it? Not everybody at once, but one person at a time. We can unmute you and you can ask your question to Sunny directly.
Well, while you're doing that, I see Brendan, you're asking, any recommendations for students less than 2.95. If you are any possibility of getting that GPA up, Brendan, be looking for it. There are ways that you can apply for internships in other places as well that may not have that stringent, 3.0 or 2.95 GPA. So you might have to look around a little bit. But it's not as all's lost, but you can start working on getting that GPA up as well. All right.
Awesome. And we've got, so Kevin, Michaela, and Miguel have their hands raised. We'll get their questions asked right now. So y'all get ready. One final question from the chat though, because this is regarding airline tickets getting expensive. So for LPSC, Iman wants to know, when will you guys be meeting, you and Jessica be meeting with them at LPSC?
Probably in the middle of the week, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And if you've got a particular time frame that you need it to fit in, we can always do meetups and not make it one big one. We can do those small tag ups like we recommend for your team. We will find a time to meet with you if you're going to be in there in particular time. So yes, LPSC is a very busy time. Be looking at ways that you can, if you're going to meet up, just let us know when you're going to be there and we will make time for you. Okay. In fact, we will be broadcasting from LPSC. I will be, and Jessica will be there that week as well for LaSpace. So we'll be live from Houston. All right, let's go on to Sunny's things.
All right, so we have Kevin. He is unmuted. Go ahead.
Hey, Sunny. Thanks for doing this. This has been a really inspiring LaSpace meeting. It really means a lot to see someone who has also kind of come from a place of hardship and, you know, being in a place where you never thought you'd make it this far and things like that. So it really means a lot to see someone that really made it. But my question is, so what's like an average day working at NASA as an employee and as an intern?
Thanks for everything you said, by the way.
Definitely.
I appreciate that. And so let's see, to your question, as I guess I'll start as an intern because I have way more experience as an intern. Average day as an intern at Johnson Space Center, you can look forward to um, one of the things we do all the time as interns is we get to hear from people like astronauts. And when I say hear from, I mean they host lectures, lecture series. And so you'll go to a lecture for the chief of the FOD, for Flight Operations Director. You'll hear from flight directors. You'll hear from scientists. You'll hear from astronauts. These are things that are available to you all the time here, you know, as a part of your internship at NASA. If you can find the time to get away from the office, you can go hear life-changing lectures from life-changing people. The other parts of your days, depending on where you're interning, I mean, I was interning upstairs. Actually, I was on this floor, just the other side. My internship involved a lot of research. And so it was different in that I was probably the only intern I knew who was involved in science. A lot of the internships here are, you know, communications, engineering, whether that's for a mission control department or that's for something like exploration, Orion, SLS, things like that. Less SLS, more Orion. But your day is kind of dependent on where you're interning. I mean, your internship may be just like me, where you're sitting on a computer most of the time or in meetings and drafting pages and pages and pages of technical content for readers. Or you might be a person working in the human resources department, or sorry, the human research program right across the street, HRP, in Building 21, and you're literally dressed up like a scientist every day, doing science, using pipettes, working in a laboratory. So your daily experience it's shared with your interns by the things that connect you guys, which are the people you're working with, the environment that you're in. I mean, anytime you want to go and have lunch next to a rocket, we have the Saturn V out here. So my favorite lunch spot is just if I'm stressed out, I go and have a sandwich sitting in front of a moon rocket. You know, that's something that you can only do here. And so your average day is anything but average. I mean, it depends on the research you're doing and what your internship is. But I mean, every single day is different. And just like, you know, just like space flight, things are procedural, but they're never routine. So there's always something different every day you come.
Nice. Yeah. So you mentioned the lectures. Are they specific to your missions, or are they just things that you can sit in and learn about?
They're just things you can sit in and learn about. So when I say lecture series, I mean it'll just one of the interns, and interns can basically run for office for a lot of these things because they're intern organized events. And so you'll have, we know there's a big intern meeting that happens that if you want to attend it, you can. And they vote for basically like chapters. Like I'm leading the tours and lectures committee. I'm leading the fancy dinner committee. There's a beach retreat committee. So all these committees are formed and they reach out to people like astronauts, influential speakers on campus. And that speaker will just have a time where they come and join you in an auditorium, and they're not being recorded or anything, right? So they're going off the cuff with you and they're giving you the straight stuff just right there out in the open. It's something for you to just kind of be a part of and see the path that they came down and how it relates to the path that you came down. So it could be about, it's usually about things from their past, the story and how they got to where they are, or things they're looking forward to, but it's not really mission specific to what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonny, and thank you, Kevin, for your questions.
Thank you.
Miguel, you are unmuted.
Nice. Thank you very much, Sonny, for talking to us and you know, telling us about everything that you've gone through. It's really comforting, you know, because sometimes it's hard to struggle if you're a community college student or just having hardships and trying to balance life and pursuing a goal or having a goal, or that goal changing and being all over the place. So thank you for that. But I just want to know, was there a moment, I could say, where you went from, oh my God, I'm at NASA, to like, oh, I'm at NASA? Did it ever like switch over? When was the switch?
Ah, man, there's a few times. This is kind of a cheat way of answering the question, but there's a few times. You know, that first day when I walked in and they handed me a paper that had more numbers on it than letters, I was like, okay, all right. More numbers on it than letters, and I was like, okay, I'm at NASA. And but there was also times like where someone is, you know, when you send emails, you're sending them to people usually, and your friends or your colleagues and coworkers. When someone tells you we're sending an email to, you know, and they're meaning this in polite, it's polite, but they're just saying to the Russians. I mean, these are our Russian counterparts. Hey, can you draft an email to the Russians concerning this and that? And you're just like, can I draft an email to the Russians? I just started here 2 weeks ago, you know? Or when or when someone tells you, hey, can you get in at 6 a.m. tomorrow? We have an international telecom with Russia, JAXA, CISA, you know, the Canadian Space Agency. When you're sitting in a room and there's interpreters for 3 different languages, and all the words you're saying have to be interpreted, sent to the other side, and then reinterpreted back. That's when you know you're at NASA. That's when you know you're a part of something international. When people on the other side of the world are on at the same time, where it's morning for you, it's 2 in the morning for them. So that is really where it starts to click, is that, whoa, there's, you know, things I'm doing here are causing real change outside in the world.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Kim, you're up next.
See, I use the acronyms again. Thank you, Jessica. I'm terrible, guys. ESA is the European Space Agency. JAXA is Japanese Space Agency. Russia is Roscosmos. That's what they go by. ASI is the Italians. And gosh, I'm really bad at acronyms. I'm sorry.
It's like alphabet soup.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right. Firstly, I'd also like to say thank you very much for this excellent presentation. I've had a similar academic path as yours. I like to call it nonlinear. I began as a psychology major, and I decided I didn't enjoy people enough to study them academically. So I began exploring other options, and I was fortunate enough to find a terrific mentor who introduced me to astronomy, and that's been my passion since.
Cool.
I found it about mid-junior year. I'm a 5th year student now. I'm hoping to graduate this spring.
Nice.
But my physics and math foundation is not as strong as I'd like it to be for graduate school purposes, and perhaps if I would like to continue finding some employment position regarding astronomy. What are your thoughts about maybe having a gap year in between applying for graduate schools? And if I do so, what are your thoughts about what I should try to occupy myself with during that year?
So, and see, I'm kind of a bad example because I didn't go to grad school yet. I'm hoping someone pays for me to go. But a gap year is a great idea. I mean, especially if you haven't had tons of experience in your field, then you need to acquire that experience before you're a more attractive candidate to the university that you're trying to be admitted into. So if you can find any way to involve yourself with, I'm not familiar with very many astronomy companies or the people. It's usually academia who's involved in astronomy, I'd think. And so if you can involve yourself more in research, especially if you can get published or things like that, which sounds really difficult, but I mean, if you can put in the work and show the reason for why your name belongs on a document, if you can get published in that gap year or put forward significant research contributions toward a university, that's huge, right? So taking a gap year is really a smart idea, especially if you're thinking, I'm just applying and kind of hoping to get in, or if you're applying and you're not sure if you're going to get in. I mean, you definitely want to be like, hey, I'm a steal for this place, this university to have. So if you want to get that confidence and that gap year lets you do that, I say go for it, and definitely occupy your time with, people say networking like as just a word, and it's hard to define that. Really, networking is just talking to the people around you and always just not trying to figure out, how can I be a better me? And this is so cheesy, but it's like, how can we be a better we? Like how can you work better as a team? And people acknowledge your smarts, but they really remember your manners and how you treat the people around you. And when they see that you're someone who's great as a teammate or great as someone to have by their side, that makes you an attractive candidate or a person to, call someone up and, hey, I know this person, they'd be great for your team, or stuff like that. Professors talk to other professors, and academia is always in contact with other people. And so really, spend your time just learning more about yourself and investing in the people around you. I know your work is going to have you really occupied, but I think a gap year is a great idea. Again, from someone who didn't go to grad school, but who did delay their undergraduate graduation by a year. I think it's great.
So can I add to that too? One of the things I would also think about is, what's going to be additive if you're going to take a gap year, you want to have a good explanation on why. And so think about the things that would be additive towards your final goals. Maybe it's, working and looking for informal kinds of settings, or settings like a planetarium that has research involved, or SETI Institute, or someplace that actually has researchers, and that you might be able to find a place in, get to know people, and have more access. Maybe it's a telescope, and maybe it's just starting in as not as a junior researcher, or something that would be a volunteer even to start with. I know NASA headquarters even has volunteer internships, if you can find a way to make money and be able to intern over a period of time. But you want to think about how, if you're sitting down and you're applying for grad school, or at some point you want to apply for a science position, you need to have a reason why you did what you did. So be mindful about thinking outside the box a little bit, and how you might find yourself in a place that will actually parlay you towards your goal in some respect.
All right, thank you. We've got Jesse up next. Jesse, you're on.
Thank
You're
you.
on with Sunny, Jesse. What's your question?
Thank you for everything, Sunny.
Yeah.
I definitely relate to your dad passing away, because last July I saw my dad pass away. So
Sorry.
I relate to you with that. I was just wondering, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because 5 years ago, you definitely probably didn't imagine yourself being in this position.
No.
So do you have a plan, or are you just kind of winging it?
Let's make sure this thing's right. No, I'm not winging it anymore. So in my group in FOD, things move really fast. So you're coming in, there's that 71-week certification for the first certificate, and then so it takes about for us to get in the front room, I think it's somewhere like 3 years. But once you're front room certified, even before you're certified, you are already a part of the team. You're sitting in meetings, you're absorbing technical content, and our system is environmental thermal control. And so it's like, everything from maintaining the temperature inside the cabin, to scrubbing CO2 to producing oxygen, to converting urine to water, and then converting some of that water back into oxygen, all these things. And we need experts on it within the team. No one person can know everything. So within the next few years, I'd like to be one of those people who've specialized in one of those fields, whether it's O2 production, CO2 scrubbers on station, the water processing unit, things like that. And then in 5 years, I really don't know where that would take me. I definitely see myself as a front room controller. And eventually, I think I'd like to become an instructor for astronauts. So once we learn our systems, the astronauts going up also have to learn, astronauts and cosmonauts have to learn these systems on station. And Building 9 at Johnson Space Center is called the Space Vehicle Mock-Up Facility. And it has the entire space station laid out, all the physical modules, and it has all of the water processing assemblies, all these things, all of these machines and racks. And we teach astronauts how to become familiar with these systems. And so becoming an astronaut instructor would be, I think, really cool. And I like teaching. And I think I hopefully have the people skills to kind of make that happen. So I think in 5 years, I want to go from being a front room controller to doing something like that. But, fingers crossed.
Thank you, Jesse. All right, next up we have Eric. Eric, you are unmuted.
Awesome. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Tired.
I can also relate to Jesse. In 2017, I lost both of my parents. So your talk tonight was really personal.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did notice, I went to Langley Research Center in Virginia. And I kind of noticed, I liked sort of their family culture that they kind of cultivate there. I was wondering, does Johnson Space Center have anything like that? A certain flavor to it,
Yeah. It's got a definite personality to it. I don't think I'd ever want to leave. And it seems like whenever someone does a tour at a certain center, especially if that center has like Glenn Research Center does a lot of biology. Marshall does all the experiments that are on station there. Their mission control for science is there. And so if that center has a lot to do with your field, it makes it easier. But Johnson, for example, we do a lot of everything, and human spaceflight involves a lot of different kinds of fields: human research, radiation testing, designing vehicles. but on top of all of that, you know, we're a huge community, Houston is, and Houston's gone through things like Hurricane Harvey, and we've gone through just a lot of stuff in the past. And for example, in Hurricane Harvey, all of this center came together. We know people who work here who lost everything that they had. People were trapped in mission control, you know, doing 12-hour shifts because it was flooded outside, so they couldn't leave. And you can't leave the station unmanned. So people were here working through that. I mean, it's a culture of persevering through things, and people are amazing here. I mean, everyone is amazing, and it really has its own flavor. Houston is a giant melting pot as it is. And Johnson, just I think because we're so involved with the personal aspect of space flight, and we're friends, you know, we see these astronauts in the cafeteria, going in the elevator. I mean, if someone gets on the elevator and they press 6 in this building, which is the astronaut floor, if they press 6 and they scan their card, I have to look this way and wonder, are you on a poster in my wall, in my room somewhere? Like, you know, so it's a crazy community to be a part of. And I think every center, like you said, Langley has theirs. Every center has a different flavor to it. And once you've been there long enough, you just never want to leave.
It's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have 3 more questions. I think, Sonny, if you're up for that, then we're going to call it a night so you can go home.
Yeah.
and get some rest. Thank you for persevering with us tonight. This has been amazing.
All right. Sorry I had to lower your hands for the rest of you after those 3, but we got to give a chance to those that raise their hands first. So Andrew, you're up next.
Oh, all right. Hey, I hate to be cliche, but you know, I also lost my dad a few years ago, and I thought it was like, I mean, I thought it was really cool that you're able to, you know, like share your experiences and all that. But, you know, as far as questions go, do you think freshmen, like it'd be beneficial for freshmen to like go for internships right now?
Yes, absolutely. So NASA has interns. This center actually has interns who are still in high school. So seniors in high school will come after school hours, if I understand correctly, for internship positions. There are people here who are. So I mentioned the Pathways program. I don't know if you can join as a freshman, but if you can join as a freshman in Pathways, as a co-op, you know, become sworn in as a civil servant, you are essentially going through college while doing tours here, already knowing that you're going to probably get a position at NASA. And so it's a huge driver for success because you want to know your stuff in college so you can apply it here, whether you're a freshman, a sophomore, a junior. You know, you should always consider applying, and you can apply for 3 semesters looking out. So you could be applying a year ahead from now, 3 semesters for each one of those semesters. So it's not like you can't plan ahead. So even if you're a freshman, you could be making applications for the end of your sophomore year right now. So that's a really cool thing that they've just now started doing. I would say that any experience that you can get, whenever you can get it, is going to be both a huge driver for success and just a big benefit to you as a person and as a professional, because you're removing yourself from that college atmosphere of a lot of people who, not to be rude, but, you know, they're living off of parents, you know, helping them out a lot, and they're just partying a lot. That culture is not always conducive to being focused, and coming into a place like NASA where people are on top of their game and trying to work together and help each other, that can be a big benefit to you growing as a professional at any point.
And I just want to bring a piggyback on that a little bit too, Sonny, in terms of it's NASA, but NASA has a lot of, we talk about the space ecosystem. There is a lot of other companies that are part of NASA, that are integral to NASA, that are also giving internships and experiences. So getting involved, you know, I would apply widely in terms of the kinds of things. I mean, we just saw someone get also an internship at Boeing that wasn't part of us at all, that actually applied. And again, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. There's a lot of different companies, and small companies actually too, that work in different things. So, okay, let's get the last 2 questions, and then I owe you big time when I come to Houston next month, Sonny. So
yeah.
All right, last 2 questions. Dan, you're muted.
Jeffrey's unmuted, but I'm muted. Jeffrey, you're up next.
Thank you. Sonny, thank you so much for your presentation. You are very inspirational. I just can't thank you enough for your inspirational speech. My main question is, with your job, how do you deal with anxiety with a certain like tasks that are presented to you, like you just mentioned, that you had a draft to write to the Russians? Like, how do you deal with that kind of anxiety? Like, what goes through your mind, and how do you calm down and say, okay, I got this? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and yeah, that's a great question. So the kind of anxiety that I faced in internships is, definitely different than the one here, because here it's, my decisions affect whether someone's parents come home from space, right? And so dealing with anxiety is something we all do in our own ways. A huge driver to have on your side is confidence, and a lot of people here, man, have imposter syndrome. We're working in NASA, like it's anyone in the world could tell you where NASA is, like anyone could tell you who Michael Jordan is, right? So you're always under that thought process that, am I good enough for NASA? Like, did I end up here on accident? It's the same thing that people go through at bigger universities or Ivy Leagues. Do I really belong here? That imposter syndrome. And you have to learn how to manage that in your own way. I would say, don't forget your successes. I mean, don't let yourself slip through your own fingers where you forget that you're only here because of the things you've already accomplished, and you're only going to get to where you're going through more accomplishments. The way I deal with my anxiety, I mean, physically, is like I have to go work out or do something physical, but also talk to someone at the end of the day. During your freak out, that's not your time to freak out. You have to tell yourself, I have to perform now. I get to freak out later if I perform now, whether I do good or bad, but I have to do my job now so I can freak out later, or, I'm going to end up on the floor in a panic attack. So I have to really press pause and just you have to trust yourself and know that you're not where you are on accident. And then later on, go and de-stress, talk to your mom or talk to your significant other or someone, and kind of let that out. I mean, I complain way too much to my girlfriend, I'll tell you that. So you just have to, we all have our own ways. For me, it's, physically just getting my body active, so I'm less jittery, and then in the moment, just go with your gut. I mean, you know your stuff at that point, and you can freak out later.
Yeah, Mo calls it selective anxiety. I think that's pretty good, Mo, in terms of how it is. All right. And the last question. What's that?
Oh, no, I said thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Last question. You're muted, Dan.
Oh my gosh, Barak Shah, you're next.
Hey, Sunny. So it was really great listening to all your stories. We're really thankful. Can't thank you enough, obviously, as everyone mentioned. And so I can definitely relate to your story, as I also started as coming from India in 2015 and started as community college. And now I'm in university pursuing aerospace engineering. And as the other person mentioned, yes, the atmosphere at Langley, Virginia was super great. So I took a course with NCAS. That was my first experience at NASA. And I was lucky enough that I did great then, and I went there. And it was only 4 days that I was there, and I never wanted to come back from that place. Yeah. I literally had tears when I was in the bus coming back to New Jersey. So definitely that's really great of NASA. The thing about the question that I wanted to ask is, I'm not a citizen yet, but I'm still trying, like a kid, I'm trying to grab every candy possible. So I tried NCAS, now I'm doing this thing. So what is the best way to pathway walk into NASA? Like, is there any recommendations that I can get? So I'm trying to grab opportunities as much as possible, but still, I mean, obviously, I respect them. They have their own things going on. So I don't know what you have to say.
Yeah, that's a great question. And congrats on everything and making it so far. That's really awesome. And it's not easy. So I definitely admire that. As far as not being a citizen, I know a lot, if not all of, and Sherry would know more than me, but a lot of NASA internships, since they're a government agency, that these are internships that are you have to be a U.S. citizen, naturalized, or a born citizen. And so I think there may be opportunities through contractors for non-direct NASA, like not maybe I guess it's NASA related, but not on NASA's site. I'm not sure how it works, but I think there are internship opportunities for people who are not U.S. citizens. Working at NASA, it's not like you have to be a U.S. citizen. I'm not sure about that, but you can be hired, I believe, Am I wrong there, Sherry, as someone
Well,
who's not a citizen?
yeah, so foreign nationals is what we call them. Then
Foreign
there are
nationals, right.
rules depending on what the project is involved in. It's called ITAR, which is
Mm.
International Trains Arms Regulations. There's a lot of things that non-U.S. citizens cannot partake in. The NASA internships proper are, and pathways included are, for U.S. citizens only. But I do know that NASA Ames actually had some programming for non-citizens, and contractors, if it's not, if it's not DoD or Department of Defense type of things, there are possibilities with them too. So I would take and just do a search and look for internships for non-U.S. citizens in engineering or whatever your major is, Barg. Just take a look and see what those things might be. And I think your experience is going to help you a lot. Are you planning on staying in the U.S. or do you plan on going back to India? Because I know the Indian Space Agency is also doing some amazing things, putting spacecraft out into the solar system. So you're muted still, Dan. Can you unmute?
Yes.
I guess I could have actually.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
So I am a permanent resident here, so
okay.
I'm definitely planning to stay here because I'm definitely planning to pursue my graduate studies right after my bachelor's. So I'm definitely looking forward to stay in the United States. And so this was a story when I was in second grade, I wanted to come to NASA because NASA had some information sent to India that they're looking for some students, young students, to come visit NASA and experience what it is. And I wasn't able to come here back when I was in second grade. But then I was able to come in the United States through the immigration, and then I was able to apply from my community college, which was a great opportunity. Luckily, I got in, and since then I've been trying to. And as I'm an alumni there, they keep sending different informations for these programs, out of which this Lucy mission was one of them. And I always have to check the requirements. And this was the first program that I saw that only required to be a 4-year college student or a college student in order to apply, and not the citizenship.
Right.
And the moment I saw that there's no requirement for that, I didn't even take a second to apply for it. I just went.
Okay. Well, being that you're a permanent resident also, and if you're working towards a green card or whatever, those kinds of things will also give you mobility in terms of some of the applications. So do the search and be diligent. And again, look at non-NASA things as well that are actually part of NASA or academia, that you can still be working on projects that are NASA based. It just may be, there may be some differences in terms of your viability on a NASA center proper, but there's a lot of other of the space ecosystem that you can get into.
Yeah.
All right. So
thank you so much.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, Sonny, you have been marathoning it here, and I know you're fighting something besides, and we sure appreciate you in terms of being able to stay with us, and we want to make sure that you're going to be part of the conscience of the folks that are doing, just like we did last Academy. We're still getting call outs in that in terms of inspiring people just to go for it all, and know that when life happens and things aren't all that great, that you don't have to lose sight of your future altogether. So we appreciate. You're definitely an amazing story, and you're so eloquent in being able to really share that. So I think they're voting for you for a TED Talk here at some point. There's all kinds of things out here.
You certainly lived up to the unofficial best speaker award that I sent out earlier to everybody.
Yeah.
Glad to know you hyped me up way too much.
No,
no, you lived up to it. It was great. Thank you.
No. Thank you.
Best speaker award. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a goat up there too, just like last time.
That was for you, Sherry. We were all calling you the goat.
Anyway.
No, really, Sonny, you talked about imposter syndrome, but you definitely deserve the Best Speaker Award. I think your non-traditional story really is important for everyone to hear. For me at the graduate level, thinking about what my next step is, I have to keep in mind, like, not everybody has had the path that I have, and then how many people you inspired in the chat. I mean, I hope you go back and read it. It's just glowing for you. So you've earned it. Like, keep it.
Thank you, and good luck, by the way. I'm sorry I missed you. I came to Arizona, but I didn't get the chance to meet you, so maybe next time.
I'll be at LPSC if you're in the area.
Yeah, I will be. You're coming to my city, so there you go.
There we go.
Well, thank you again, and all of you LaSpacers that have hung in here. We're still above 70 of you that have stayed on this late, and we appreciate all of you. All of you have great stories, and we're looking forward to being with you in the future in terms of hearing back what's going on. And we're always here. You're alumni. You're part of the fam, the fam. That's what we know. So we don't lose track of that. And again, Sonny, you've been one of the things that I think a lot of people are hoping to aspire to in terms of being able to have their story and share it, doing those elevator talks, all of that along the way. So have a good night, and we look forward to seeing you back. Have a safe spring break, and we are excited again for this academy. You are amazing people in terms of where you are and all the different kinds of stories you represent. And this is really what the fabric of exploration looks like when I look across the screen and see all of the people that are represented here and are with us every week. So thanks, Sonny, and we'll be checking in for an update now and then. Okay?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for having me.
All right.
Thanks, Sonny. Good seeing you.
All right. Good night, everybody, and we'll look forward to looping back around on the other side of spring break. So enjoy those couple weeks. We're here for you. If you've got questions, we'll be glad to be here, and we want to see you all the way to the finish line. So Good night.
And again, be safe.
Yes, be safe.
Thanks. Bye.
Good night.